Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy, and today let's talk about writing fight scenes. How obvious was it from that intro that I don't know how to throw a punch? So although I might not be that useful in helping you learn to actually fight people, I hope I can impart some tips on how to write about a fight scene. Fight scenes are often a moment of highest tension, but a lot of writers, including myself, find them really difficult to write. There are a lot of things that make them pretty tricky. With the tips I want to talk about in this video, it's actually not that difficult when you break it down and kind of look at the do's and don'ts of writing a fight scene. So step number 1, motivate your characters. You want to motivate your characters in every scene, but in a fight scene it's especially important because it's a pretty high energy scene and it's going to be really weird if your characters just start punching each other and we don't know why they're punching each other. Consider the motivations your characters have for both starting the fight and once they're in it. So are they forced into this situation and just trying to survive? Is death a stake? Did they lose control over their temper in a verbal altercation, or did the other party lose control of their temper? Are they trying to protect someone or an object or trying to retrieve something, or do they have to just get through some people in order to get where they need to go to do the thing they need to do? Are they trying to prove themselves? Are they trying to defend theirs or someone else's honor? Is this part of a larger battle? Are they fighting as per someone else's orders? If they are, what are their unique individual goals? Do they go against their higher orders? Figure out what everyone in the scene is trying to get from this fight beyond just hurt the other guy. More complicated motivations can make just a general action scene a lot more interesting and a lot more psychologically complex. Step 2, use powerful descriptions. This is a fight scene. There are going to be some pretty intense moments, and you want descriptions that match that level of intensity. You want to use powerful descriptions and strong, impactful word choice in order to convey the tension and the impact of the scene. Start by using strong verbs. A more specific, powerful verb can make just a regular beat of the scene so much more interesting. Think about how many synonyms there are for the word hit, and think about how you can create a more specific image just based on the verb that you use. And try to avoid adverbs in this case. Adverbs are going to add more words, which means they're going to slow the pace, and you probably want this to be a pretty quick-paced scene, which means you want less words but stronger words. So instead of an adverb and a weak verb, you just want one singular strong verb. You also want to use your show don't tell skills. We've got a video on show don't tell, so I'll leave a link to that in the cards, but it's something you really want to consider when writing a fight scene. You want the reader to feel what the character is feeling, rather than just be told what they are feeling. And you want to use the senses. This is a really intense visceral moment, and you want the reader to be immersed in that. Maybe your character tastes blood, or they describe the feeling of clutching for air when they get thrown to the ground and end up winded. Try to think about these powerful, visceral, sensory details so that the reader is just really thrown into the adrenaline rush that is a fight scene. Step 3, control the pace. Details are great and immersive, but you want to make sure that you're controlling the pace in a way that suits the pace of the scene. Too much description can turn a high-energy fight scene to kind of a mellow, long, flowy description, and that usually doesn't fit with the tone of almost every fight scene. So short sentences for when your character throws a knife, or dodges a punch, or parries a blade, and then maybe a longer sentence in a moment of kind of suspended tension, maybe where the character thinks they're about to die, or they're taking a moment to try to regain their senses and catch their breath. You can also spend more time on a specific action and put more weight on it if it's really a struggle for the character. But let's say your character is just kind of decimating a herd of zombies like there's nothing to it, then the scene might gloss over more and we might not get into as many gritty details than if the character was like really fearing for their life. You also want to avoid choreographing the scene too much in too specific detail. Usually specific detail is great, but in the case of a fight scene, if you choreograph every single beat, every step, every punch, every lunge, then it will become really cluttered and hard to follow, and it will just kind of detach the reader from the scene. A punch-by-punch account of a fight can become quite boring quite quickly, which is kind of counterintuitive because people are literally punching each other. This should be intense and interesting. But it can become quite repetitive and it lacks emotion since it's just a list of actions. You also want to avoid technical terms, such as if the character is like, then I did a reverse pivot side kick. Most people don't really know what that is, and they're not going to be able to picture it. There are cases in fiction where you might use descriptive words like jargon that the reader's not familiar with to really create the character's world. But in the case of fight scenes, we really want to make sure that we don't lose the body. If we lose sense of what the character is doing physically, we've basically lost sense of the entire scene because the scene is really rooted in the character's body and what they're doing physically. So we don't want to lose track of that, and that means not using jargon to describe the actions. bring in the emotion. A piece of action doesn't really do much for the reader if there's no emotion behind it. Emotion enhances the stakes, and it's where the tension is coming from. If there's no emotion and there's no feeling, there's not tension, because why do we care? Emotion is what's going to make us care about the character and their survival. So make sure you don't lose your internal narrative, especially if you feel like you're falling into the habit of just doing a punch-by-punch laundry list of actions. Maybe it's time to dive into your character's head a little more. You can always think of that back and forth effect. So we have maybe an action beat, and then we have a narrative beat where the character describes how they're feeling, the fear that they feel, play into their goal. What is it they're trying to get? Are they trying to protect someone? Is that fear for someone else? And then maybe another action beat, and then another emotional beat. You also really want to think about the emotions before and after the fight. An action scene is all well and good, but the real emotion is often going to be what happens before the fight scene and what happens after the fight scene. It's what's leading up to this moment and the emotional fallout from it that's often most impactful and most interesting. That being said, the last thing you want to do is transition out of the scene. It doesn't really work in most cases to just abruptly end a fight scene and then have everyone go back to how everything was. There's going to be some emotional fallout there. Assess where the character is at and what kind of consequences they're going to face because of the fight that they were just in. Does the character have any injuries? Are they in pain? Even if they survive the fight, are they still in danger of dying? Do they need to get themselves to some kind of medical attention immediately? What kind of emotions are going through their head? What kind of trauma have they experienced? What kind of trauma might they be feeling from what they've done to someone else? If a character gets in a fight and kills someone and they've never killed someone before, that's gonna leave an impression on them. That's not gonna be something that they can probably just shake. Yeah, I just killed someone, it's fine. No, this is gonna have a huge emotional fallout on the character in most cases. Remember the goals that you established at the beginning. Did they achieve them? Did they not achieve their goal? What's their goal now that the fight is over? Is there another part of their goal? Say if they were on a mission to retrieve something, is there still something they need to do now that they've gotten through the fight? Since this is how you make that fight scene feel important to both the character's development and to the plot. So that is how to write a fight scene. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more on this topic, you can read the blog post linked in the description, and remember to subscribe for new writing, editing, and publishing videos every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time.